Alright, so I am back, and today we're going to be continuing on our little Stunticon journey that we've started. I'm doing these out of order, so I'm doing all these videos just all sorts of out of order. So excuse me if I'm doing that, if I say or do something that, or talk about something I haven't talked about before, or talk about something like I've talked about it a bunch of times. It's hard to explain, but I'm shooting this first, and then I'm shooting the actual reviews second, and then I'm going to finish this in the end. And that's how I'm going to do all of these guys. So, to continue on the Stunticon week, so here they are in their vehicle modes together. Fanstoys here, X-transbots here. As you can see, they both hold their guns on the back of the cars. We'll look at that more in depth when we get to the actual review. So, both roll fine. They both look pretty good. I can't deny that. They look pretty good. Now, this one's fully painted with this kind of white glossy look. Except for this piece here, which I don't think that's painted. I think it's just red plastic, I think. And then this guy, I have a hard time keeping them stuck together. He's got this gloss finish on this plastic here. I don't think this is painted at all. I'm pretty sure it's not. This part is a little black here and there, but I'm pretty sure all of this beige color is all just the base plastic with a gloss finish on it, which is, I mean, it looks great. I can't sit here and say it doesn't look good, because it looks pretty phenomenal. But yeah, so yeah, to go over the board, what we have, just because I haven't talked about it yet. So we're going to be rating these guys like I always have, in a number of categories. We've got the car mode, transformation, posability, scale, build, QC, price, and then I used to just do these in separate categories, but I'm just going to cram them together in one. But G1 and style, meaning which one looks the most G1 and which one has like its own style. For example, like if I were to throw the Fans Project breakdown into this conversation, he would definitely get a point in style, but not in G1. So it's like either way you can get a point in it if you have something that the other one doesn't, in a way that's unique enough. Now, I did debate on whether or not to get the DX9 cars to look at as well, but ultimately I decided not to, because one, money, and two, the DX9 doesn't bring anything to the table that's all that much different than the Fanstoys ones does. I'm not saying it's not a viable option, but I don't think from what I've seen, I don't think they've aged real well in comparison to these two. Now, I could be completely wrong, and somebody out there will be like, no, they're the best ones. And maybe I'll pick them up someday and we can take a look at all of them. But for now, I'm just going to do these two, because I think these are the two ones that are most, that has the most conversation to it. And so, here's how this all started. And I'll explain this in this video and not in the other two videos, the reviews, but I'm going to explain it here. So, I watched a lot of videos on reviews, even my own, of the X-transbots cars. And ultimately, I decided to go with these guys because I like the scale better in robot mode. I love the fact that they're the same size as an Autobot car. That's what I want in my Stunticon set. However, in the reviews of these guys, I can't deny the fact that they look amazing. So I asked the question on Nerd Rage Radio. On whether or not these guys are worth it to pick up, even though they don't fit in my scale. And the answer was ultimately no. Kind of just go with what you want your scale to look like. But while that conversation was had, a listener on the show, let's see if I can find him. Where is it? Dreadhawk. Shout out to you. He hit Skullface up and said, "Hey, I've got this set of Fanstoys Stunticons." Because that was part of the conversation too, was just the fact that the Stunticons aftermarket price is so high that he ultimately didn't think that it would be worth it to, throw my collection away and start over. And I just don't see the DX9 fitting into that category of good enough for me to throw out my collection, or start over. But he hit up Skullface and said, "Hey, I've got this set, and I'm willing to sell it to Geringer at cost." So Skullface gave me the details. I emailed him, got to talking, and I bought the set. So I have all 4 Stunticons, which, as irony would put it, and then I just find this kind of funny, the last Stunticon that's not out yet is Dead End, and that's the only X-transbot one I don't have because he's still on pre-order on BBTS. I have the order in, I'm just waiting for it to arrive. It says any day now, but we'll see how that plays out. So anyway, so to get the set at cost, I was like, man, I gotta at least take a look at it. And so that's how we've led to this point. So we're going to start with the breakdowns, because I don't really have much of an order. The only reason why I'm going with breakdowns was because, first off, he was the first one I opened out of the box, and I was like, man, this guy's pretty cool. But also, this was the first X-transbot one that got released. I think Motormaster on Fanstoys was released first, but we'll get there eventually. But yeah, anyway, so the concept of this week, and this entire month really, next 4 weeks anyway, is each week I'm going to focus on one of these 4 Stunticons from the 2 companies. We'll do an X-transbot review, and then a Fanstoys review, and then the war video for each one. And then we'll see which one comes out on top. And then once Dead End comes out, we'll be able to look at the final ones. Now, whether or not I'll look at combined mode is up in the air, because I don't have the trailer for the X-transbot one. I don't really want to spend that kind of money for the trailer on that. And if they do the same thing with the Fanstoys one, I probably won't be going that route either. I haven't decided yet. We'll see how things play out. So anyway, that's where we're starting at. And then for the first category, which is why we started here, I wanted to show off just, once you see him in robot mode here in a moment, you'll see how crazy this is, because he is a bigger car than him, but marginally. If stacked on top of each other, you see he's just got a little bit sticking out, and just the tiniest bit sticking over the top. They are almost identical in size and width, or length and width, and I think just about height. I mean, these guys are so very close. It's crazy. And I can't get this guy all the way to get back together. And what's really cool is here is the MP Sideswipe. And style-wise, they're all just slightly different from the other. This guy's a little bit more angular. This guy's a little bit more rounded. But yeah, they all pretty much pull off that look of this particular car, and that's pretty cool. So I'm going to leave this guy car mode so we can show scale on the other ones as we go. I don't know if the other ones do the same kind of thing. I imagine they do. I'm pretty sure they do, but I think that's pretty impressive for them to go that route. So as far as car mode goes, I'm not going to give them that point because of the transformation, because there's the transformation part for that. And there's other places we can give a point for that. But also kind of this category too. I know I'm rambling. So I'm ultimately going to give a point to both of them for the car mode, because I think the car mode looks so good on both of them. He's better built, obviously, but we'll get into that later. But he hits that mark just right. He's got the movable lights, which I'll probably never open again after this. So those lift up, and then the doors also lift up if you want to do that. All of that's pretty cool, but ultimately, it's like, I'm never going to use that again. But I have to also give these guys a point here too, because of the use for the original price of this guy, which was like $40. I think $40-$50. For that price, the utilization of the plastic that has been glossed over with that finish to make this really nice looking car is really impressive. So I've got to give them props there as well. So I think they both win in car mode. And I think if you're leaving them in car mode, either one really works in this particular scenario. If I were to... I'm trying to be unbiased with this, but ultimately, like, if I were to pick one, if not the other, it's hard for me to say. To be honest, it's, on the one hand, I think this one looks better, but I like the color on this one better. But I think Sideswipe actually pulls it off the best, because I love red, and it's got that nice glossy red paint there. So, yeah. Anyway, we're not talking about him. And he doesn't quite stay together very well, but we'll talk about that later. Car mode, I think they both get a point here. So I'm going to stop the video here, review him, and then we'll get back to the chart. Okay, alright, so let's continue on with the war video. So, next up, to talk about, which I've actually tried to kill a couple lights, hoping that would... get rid of some things, but it's still got some glare on that board, but we'll just have to push through it. So transformation, let's talk about transformation. This is a tough one. So his transformation is pretty complex. I don't like certain elements of it, and it feels like everything has to go a certain way, because it really does, because of that mass shifting change there, which is crazy. It pulls off a pretty awesome transformation because of it, although it is a little on the obnoxious side. And the more I mess with it during the video, the more I was liking it, because I found, this tabs in a little bit further here, this moves a little bit over there. So, so I have to give it to Fanstoys. The X-transbot one is a lot simpler, but it also kind of feels a little bit more amateurish with the way certain things work, and things not tabbing in perfectly. So ultimately, I do have to give it to Fanstoys on this one. Now, posability. Let's run it through. Head, hinge, swivel, up and down. Head, hinge, swivel, up and down. tolerance on the head is a little bit too tight for my preference, but it does work. Yeah. I'm just like, did I do posability in his video? Swivel here does get caught up on some of the kibble. Hinge out to the side on the ratchets, and then if you move this tab out of the way, you get a pretty good range there. Bicep swivel, double bend elbow, wrist swivel, fingers hinge in and out. His arm up to there. It will not go further. There's nothing for it to untab like he has. So his just kind of cheats the system. Bicep swivel, double bend elbow, wrist swivel, and then he's got the thumb and each finger. So I'm going to tie, I tie him on the arms just because his could reach a little bit further, but his fingers are a little bit more posable, although that doesn't really mean much. Waist swivel, it does get caught up in the back there. Waist swivel does get caught up in the back there. His actually goes further. He's got an ab crunch. I can't tell if he's got an ab crunch or not. It ain't moving though. Move these out. Hips ratchet up to there. Back to there. And friction out to the side. Thigh swivel. Double bend knee. And the foot does the rocker and the tilt. Pieces move out to the side, friction out to the back, friction up to there, soft ratchet out to the side, thigh swivel, bends at the knee, gets you about half, and then he's got the rocker and the toe tilt, but the heel only tilts forward, so it doesn't tilt with the toe, so that's, yeah. So ultimately I have to give the point posability to Fanstoys again. Alright, now scale. This is an interesting conversation that I'm going to have here, but not in the rest of these reviews as we go. This is where I want them. This, according to the Sunbow chart, come on, Starscream, just stand up. He's not having a hard time standing. I'm having a hard time getting him into the camera and just doing what I want him to do. This is where the Sunbow chart says they should be. So, do I rate them in scale on what I want, or do I want to rate them on scale according to the Sunbow chart? There's all sorts of arguments that can be placed here. The biggest one that I have always argued is the episode Masquerade, where the Autobot cars disguise themselves as Stunticons and fool Megatron. I rewatched parts of that today, and I realized the fatal flaw in my logic with that being Windcharger. Windcharger is a mini-bot, and he's more Bumblebee scale. Maybe a little bit taller, more like Cliffjumper. But they're supposed to be smaller than Sideswipe, but they aren't in this. He isn't in this episode, so that he looks the same part as the Stunticons. So that goes back into the whole issue of scales, whatever you want it to be. One person can make the argument that a car shouldn't be, huge. Shouldn't be the same size of a jet. And I could counter that argument with, the car isn't. The robot is. So, I'm going to give a point. I'm going to give a point because the X-transbots hits the scale I want. But I have to counter that point with the Fanstoys because it hits the scale from all the charts, all the information I could really find. It hits those points properly and also tackles at the same time the part of a car should be the size of a jet. The car is not the size of a jet. The robot is, but the car isn't. And it tackles the mass shifting thing. So yeah. The build quality. Or the build of the figure. I mean... Oh, Fanstoys. But I will again point out, like I said in his review, I have to give them credit. So I'm going to actually give them a +1. Just because of the battling the KO with this figure. The fact that they released it at near cost prices when everything else around that size should have been around $100. They released it originally around $40-50. They put out a pretty darn good figure, and it's one of the better X-transbots figures of that time, and I remember it made me think twice about this company because I had written them off. I've written them off a few times, but I'd written them off, and then I got this guy and I was like, wait a minute, they actually have something here. So I have to give them just a +1 on that because it was pretty good good of them to do to fight the KO of this guy coming out. Back to the build quality though, Fanstoys just slaughters him. The amount of die cast, the way things tab in together, I have on mine these little pieces here. I don't like the way they work, and when you move them because they're die cast, they have a tendency to become loose. So hopefully I don't have to transform them again. And these little pieces here that are just obnoxious. That's my build quality on that. That's my build quality issues. He, on the other hand, these panels don't really tab in. This backpack doesn't tab in very well. This doesn't tab in. These don't tab in. These do not stay tabbed in. He definitely has that rushed feel. Is he rushed? Yeah, probably. But yeah, I have to give it there. I have to say that. Quality control. And this is going by these two products that I'm looking at here. Not off of, the 1,000 other copies of them that are out there that somebody might have a bad one. I have to go by these. And I've had 2 versions of this guy, and also at least 1 or 2 versions of the youth version of this guy. And while I have some issues with the build, things not tabbing in because they're not designed to, and these little tabs here that they hook on there, but they're very clearly designed to come undone for transformation. That's really the only part that doesn't stay tabbed in. This guy, on the other hand, those hip pieces annoy me. And that's more of a QC kind of thing. Like almost a design error. So I'm not going to give these guys either a point in QC. That's all I got to say. Just like I was kind of going somewhere, but I was like, but is that fair to say he has worse QC than he does? I think they're about equal, so I'm not going to give either one a point. They're not perfect when it comes to quality control. And it's just more design choices that lead to these issues. I did have to spend... Well, honestly, I did have to spend a good 15 minutes tightening joints on him. And I didn't have to do that with him. I also had to tighten those joints during the review. So, yeah, I'm going to have to actually... I'm going to give the QC a point to the X-transbot. Because I do think that for once, X-transbot does have better QC. And you got to remember, before I get lynched for this, if you remember back in the day, early days of Fanstoys, Quake Wave, first couple Dinobots, they were notoriously bad with their QC. And that's what led to the little QC inspected by, or whatever it is, stickers that you find on them all the time now. There's a reason why those are there. And that's because of issues they had. Fingers falling off. Fingers were loose. I mean, if you go back and watch my original Scoria review, the thing was a floppy mess. It had some major issues. Every one of my Dinobots had QC issues. Right off the bat, my Grimlock, I got it for cheap for what he's going for now, because he's got a mold error on one of his wings. So, X-transbots is bad on building something good. But a lot of times their QC is pretty decent. It's the build that's the problem, or the materials they used. They degrade really fast. So, anyway. But yeah. Not saying that the materials and the build isn't better on him than him. Because I'm not. I'm just saying that there's a couple tweaks that need to be done on these guys, as opposed to these guys half the time. Alright. Anyway, moving on to the next category. Price. The price on these guys, I mean, it's a one-sided fight. And it's because of that battle against the KO. X-transbots just destroys him in price, because he was $40-$50. At his current price, it would be a little bit closer if we go his current price versus his retail price, his original retail price. Currently, he's going over $200, and he's going closer to $100. So he's about twice the price. But if you're looking for a good figure for your buck, that's the guy. If you're looking for the best figure, regardless of the price, it might be this guy. And the last one is G1/style. Neither one of these gets a point for the style, because they were going for the G1 look. Like I said at the beginning of the video, the style would go more for if we were talking about, say, the Fans Project one. The Fans Project one would win in style. Guaranteed. Every time. It has a very unique look to it, and it looks great. I love that. I love the Fans Project ones. I have them somewhere. I should clean them up and get a display shelf out for just them. I was actually debating on doing a Fans Project shelf, just as like a hall of memory. But anyway, way off topic now. As far as G1 goes, let's see here. Took just a couple screenshots. Here is G1 toy. So obviously it doesn't match with the head. Neither one of them do. But it's got better white, more like him, and not as beige. And here is G1 cartoon, where he's got more of this kind of beige look. Like, this is actually pretty cool. That's almost spot on. It's hard to see it in the camera, but if you can see, if you go find this guy up there, this picture, just put it up there. So, but also he's got the more silver chest, and he's got like the greatest chest where he just has the white. So ultimately, I can't. I think they both hit that nail on the head for the G1 look. So I'll give them both a point. They're not perfect, but they're pretty close on that look. All right. Now, for final score, X-transbots got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And Fanstoys got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There you go. It's a tie. It's a tie. That's not something I was expecting. Yeah. I'm going to boil this down to one thing when it comes to these two cars. Because, you know, they both have issues. He's got more issues overall. They both look good. They're both going to look great on your shelf. But the ultimate winner in this category is going to be this. What scale do you want? Do you want Sunbow chart scale? Or do you want Autobot car scale? That's your ultimate decision to make here. I don't know what else to say. We'll see how the other ones turn out. I will say, you know, he's the only one that's going to get that extra point because of the KO war. I have to give it to them because I have to give them something with that, for that. That sounded wrong. I have to give him something, anything. No. I have to give him some sort of point for that because that was very commendable for them to do. And you don't see other companies doing that. You know, when the Cloud9 Quake Blast, which is kind of a knockoff of the Quake Wave, you know, Fanstoys didn't reissue Quake Wave at a super cheap price, even though they made them money off their mold. No. They did a few tweaks on the mold and reissued it and charged you. They made sure to charge you $150+ for it. So, you know, it's like they didn't go war with KOs, really. You know, they kind of did, but they also weren't giving the figure away. Whereas this guy was essentially released at cost just to fight it. I mean, $40 for a Masterpiece style car, and he can sit on a shelf next to a Masterpiece car and look good. That's very commendable of them, and they deserve that point. I mean, and that's the one thing I've got to say, you know, like, you know, before people like start like, but this guy looks so much better. He looks more like an Autobot car, like the older Autobot cars. He definitely looks more like a modern day Masterpiece, you know, that we've been getting, but he looks more like an Autobot car. So if you're going for that Autobot car scale and look, he's the better one for you. If you're going for more of that, the best version of the character, scale be damned, but also the one that's more representative and of the cartoon and Sunbow chart, he's the one. And also a figure that deals with the mass shifting. It's pretty cool. Neither one have a great transformation. His is a little bit easier to bear. His is not. But his cleans up better. His does not. So it's just kind of... I think it's going to boil down to your scale. So, and what the other cars are like. Will they get blown out of the water? You know, here's my prediction. And, you know, I won't be able to tell you what it is until then. I don't know about the Motormasters because those were both really great. I have a feeling that the Fanstoys what is going to destroy this guy. But I also have a feeling this guy's going to hold his own. But we'll see how that plays out. Just a prediction. Just a prediction. Loser, possibly winner. But we'll see. I'm not I don't want you guys to be like, oh, well, he already made up his mind. I'm just saying, this is a prediction. I have not messed with the Fanstoys of ones of these guys very much. Just opened them up and looked at them real quick. So we'll see how it all plays out, because I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to this. I'm not looking forward to transforming this guy. No way. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. And then next week we will take a look at this guy. Dreading the Motor Master ones, I'm telling you.